Hey folks, Keith Beasley here from Canada the Rough. One of our favorite time of year is around the corner with fall. The air is getting a little cooler in the mornings, and that has us thinking about moose season. And moose is one of our favorite things to hunt. They're an absolutely incredible animal to chase. They're gigantic, they're huge, everybody knows that. But they're actually a lot of fun because a lot of interaction with a moose, a lot of talking, a lot of behavioral stuff, and getting in tight on one seems to be one of the ultimate thrills, for us anyway. So I was going to talk today about what it is a strategy around when you locate a moose, either by sound or by sight. We glass a lot. We're always looking to see if we can get an advantage by finding one before we located it by call or by sound, or before we have to start calling. So glassing is a huge, huge thing for us with moose hunting, and we encourage anybody to do it, whether it's across a cut, across a bog, across a lake. If you can get eyes on a moose before it knows you're talking to it, way, way, way better in your advantage. If you locate a moose differently by call and you hear the cow call or the grunt in the distance, the things we do or the tricks we do to get in tight are kind of what I wanted to share with you today. So obviously spot and stalk is a huge deal with any species, but with moose they do have phenomenal ears. Not as great of eyes, but phenomenal ears and phenomenal nose. So you have to keep all the same spot and stalk tactics into play when you're doing that. One thing to think about is if you are spot and stalking a moose and you haven't called at it, like it doesn't know that you're there, and you're just sneaking in, when it starts to get too loud, you're crunching too many sticks, or you've got to go through a mud hole, or you got to walk through water. This is a stage where we'll actually pretend we're a moose. We'll stop trying to sneak. We'll continue to sneak, but we'll actually try to sneak as if we're a moose. So there's so many ways to do that. I love my call, and I love having something with me to imitate an antler, both for visual and for sound. A canoe paddle works good. Got to carry a canoe paddle. These scapulas or shoulders work great. But while you're creeping in on a moose and you want it to think that you're another moose, just the soft little touches with your paddle as you go through. Like if you're going to be breaking leaves or sticks, just let an antler crack at the same time you're doing it. If you're going to go through a mud hole, as soon as you get through the other side, maybe make a soft touch with your scapular paddle as you're walking. They're already going to have your attention anyway. You're going to have their attention anyway with your sound, but adding something moosey to it. The less calling you make in this process, I think the better, because you're just subtly letting them know a bull's approaching, but then you start to let out some soft grunts as you walk too. So if I'm sneaking in on that bull and I need to get through a 100-yard thicket to get up in the clearing to see it, I know he's going to be right there, but I got to get through that thicket. I will start coming through just soft grunt calling. I can't see the bull, but I know he's there, and I'm just trying to cover that distance safely without him running, so when I arrive, he's on the other side. So that's one little trick that we use all the time to try to effectively get in range. When we're calling and interacting with a moose and we've located it by sound, we don't see it, we just hear it. Very often you'll get a response with a distant bull grunt. And when you're moose hunting, folks, seriously, sit in one spot and give your morning up or your afternoon up in one spot, unless you're in open mountain ranges or open bogs, you're trying to cover ground and glass. But if you're in heavily covered areas, just sit and call. Call for hours. Call for 2, 3, 4 hours in the morning, 2, 3, 4 hours in the afternoon. And just sit and listen. Sometimes it's a stick crack. Sometimes it's their antler on the side of a tree. They'll actually crack the side of the tree. You'll just hear a crack, a big thud with their antler. And then oftentimes, most common, it's a distant grunt. Just a way off in the distance. And it's hard to decipher what that is or how far it is. But once you get that call or get that grunt and you know a moose is there, and oftentimes it's a cow call and the bull's with her silently. So you have to pay attention to what that is, but if they're not coming to you and they're not closing any distance, they're not going to come to you and you got to go to them, then how do you do that? And those are back to the spot and stalk strategies. Those are ways we do it. So cow calling is very, very effective for bringing in big bulls. But when you're going in on them, the cow calling I find gets a little less effective, and I would rather go in as if I'm a bull, because it'll probably keep the bull there or have him meet me halfway. So if I hear a cow calling and I think she's with a bull, they're breeding, I'll go in as if I'm a bull. If I hear a bull grunting and he's not coming out, I'm assuming he's with a cow, he's cowed up, and he's not coming to me. He's gonna hold his ground in there. I gotta go to him, so I'll pretend I'm a bull. So back to those strategies, we'll walk in as if we're a bull moose. Not trying to make loud noises, but sometimes when you get in his kitchen or you get in close, you know you can't see him, but you're in there, we'll start cracking branches on purpose. We'll start raking harder and more, and then we'll listen to what he's doing. And often we can pull that bull off a cow if you get inside their kitchen or inside their 100 or 200 yard space where you're in with them. So one thing to keep in mind is when you have a bull responding to you, or a cow, we've had cows come in bawling the whole way, dragging the bull and never hearing the bull. They're breeding and she's coming to see who's in her area. One thing to think about is when you have the moose for sure committing to you, it's closing distance. You know the call's getting closer. You know it's coming your way. Don't move. Only go to a moose when it's not moving. Only go to a moose when it's holed up and not coming any further closer to you. If it's committing to you, don't risk this. You don't know what path it's going to take or what angle it's going to take. And once it's committed, it's coming in. For most of you that have turkey hunted, it's very similar. You don't want to go at a tom that's making his way to you. So it's the same idea. I know that may be stating the obvious, but very important not to try to cut the distance unless you're running at a daylight on an evening hunt. Then obviously you got to do what you got to do to get closer. But let that moose come to you. I can't tell you the number of times I've seen moose standing on a spot we were calling 4 hours before we went for a walk or a hike, and there it was. These moose, if they're coming and they're committed and you can hear it, it will make its way out to you if the wind is right. But again, keep all those factors in play, and a moose nose is phenomenal. Do not play the wind wrong with a moose. So those are some little things that help us along the way that are very strategic for us for closing the distance. Now, everybody has their optimal range. If we're rifle hunting, we're not trying to close into the final 30, 40, 50 yards. Rifle is a totally different game. If we're archery hunting, especially in the timber, if you're trying to bring them through the timber, you got to get in as close as possible. There's so many sticks and brush. But moose are a large animal. So I'll never talk to anybody about their comfortable range with a bow and arrow. But we're trying to close the distance on moose at under 75. They're a big target, and if you can get him broadside looking at you, 75, but we really want them under 50. That's ideal. And to do that, just don't be afraid. Their eyesight are not like a whitetail. They're not like an elk. They're not like a sheep. You can literally use your bow, use your paddle, use your scapula, and try to close that distance with them. And once he starts to come in, just settle down and get him in the trance. He's rarely looking at you as he comes in. He's often side angling you, his corner of his eyes keep an eye on you, so he's not staring at you and walking right at you like a whitetail coming to a rattle would be. This moose is probably going to be posturing and doing things that are a little off to the side, a little off the edge, and circling around you. So that's your chance to let him think you're a bull, and just soft grunt, a little bit of movement, but not a lot, and just subtly get ready and try to get that bull within 50 yards that way. Try to trick him into that soft little closing area and close that distance for you. So those are some fun things that are there for us. And if you haven't done it yet, when you bring a big bull in close, it's one of the most incredible experiences in the outdoors and one of the ultimate. And when you walk up on them, it gets even better because they're incredibly large, especially these Canadian moose from the Yukon to Newfoundland. They're giant animals and a ton of fun to hunt. So there's some thoughts to share with you this fall. So closing the distance, and once you locate a moose, getting in tight and getting it to happen. So all the best this fall.